Good morning. Hey, sorry, I got a little sidetracked here. Hey, this is your playground guy, Johnny Juan Ortiz here with the Cool Kids Club. Right, today is Faith Your Fears Friday in the FuNLiFe community, and as you guys know, this whole thing is powered by the Zig Ziglar Legacy Certification Program, and we're just simply here to share with you guys tips, tricks, life hacks, whatever you want to call it. Because on Faith Your Fears Friday, it's all about helping you to reactivate that childlike faith that is inside of you to live out your childhood dreams in this playground we call life. And hey, listen, if you think this playground is awesome, woo, baby, you wait till we get to that playground in the sky. Hey, listen, I'm super excited today because we have a guest, part of an inner circle that I'm a part of. We met in Chicago, and if you follow her, if you've seen her on social media, if you've seen her speak, if you just hear her story, which I'm going to let her get to here in just a second, it's amazing. And she asked me, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you go, I'm going to post it here in just a little bit, but she is the CEO and founder of the Fellowship of Extraordinary Women, FU for short, right? And she's also an author, international speaker, and mother of 11. And that is awesome in and of itself. But when I started going through everything, all her pages and everything, check this out, guys. FU is the Fellowship of Extraordinary Women. Ready? They believe that everything they do is to empower women to live extraordinary lives, to tell their story. Yes, you have a story, right? And so as women of faith, they honor God by living the extraordinary lives that Jesus died to give them. And so as we do it better when they lock arms, they do it better when they lock arms with like-minded women, right? And so she goes on to say that we know that women are an answer for their families, their churches, communities, and their nation. So the world needs them to say yes to the extraordinary call to lead in faith and family and in business more than ever before. And so FU, check this out. Before we bring Kimberly on, she goes on to say that FU awakens, activates, and accelerates women in their divine destinies and gives them courage to tell their extraordinary stories. Guys, without further ado, Kimberly Joy, welcome to the show.
Morning, Johnny. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so pumped, Kimberly. I'm sitting here reading everything that you guys do. Having met you, having heard your personal story was incredible. And so I just want you to introduce yourself. I call them the Cool Kids Club, right? Tell all the cool kids here in the FuNLiFe community who you are, what you do, what you're about, what's going on with Kimberly Joy these days.
Wow. Thank you, Johnny. Well, first of all, I'm so honored to be welcomed into the Cool Kid Clubs. This Cool Kids Club, it might be the first time in my life I was invited. So thank you guys for watching today or watching back. So FU is the expression. I just say it's the expression of my destiny, the demonstration of my destiny. It took a lot to get me here. You don't start a movement without having had a movement in your own life. And FU is really a movement for women. It's not just a professional network. It's not just a publisher. It's not just an empowerment thing. It's not just a rah, rah, rah. We are equipping women with professional certifications. We're publishing their stories. We are empowering them to take the stage or to get on social media, to write their story, to articulate their message. We're offering them all kinds of skills. Ultimately, Johnny, to leave a legacy in their faith, in their family, and with their finances. And it's something that you don't hear a lot about. You don't hear a lot about, hey, listen, let's be intentional about the legacy we're going to leave behind. And it's crazy because I made this TikTok the other day about legacy, and it was just about, hey, if you're going to want to leave a legacy, you're going to have a Goliath, and you're going to have a Judas, and you're going to have a Delilah. Like, it's part of the deal, right? And somebody commented, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. And this was the comment: "This is terrible advice." which I find really fun. And okay, why? And this is terrible advice because the only legacy you should want to leave is a legacy that points people to God. And I was like, honey, we're saying the same thing. I mean, I'm like, I agree. Like, that is the legacy I'm talking about. But here's the thing, like having an extraordinary faith and having an extraordinary family, especially if you've had extraordinary difficulty in those areas, and leaving an extraordinary financial legacy to your children's children, like it says in Proverbs, does point people to Jesus. It does point people to heaven. So there's just a disconnect out there. That was my takeaway. I'm like, I got a lot of work to do.
We all do, right? We all have a lot of work to do. And I always tell people that, what would it look like if you woke up every morning with the faith and the courage to slay any giant that this world puts in front of you, right? It doesn't matter, right? It's not about how big the giant is in front of you, more so than it is about how big God is inside of you, right? And so when you live life with that kind of extraordinary, I love that word that you guys use. When you use that extraordinary faith, I personally believe that David could have slung the stone that way and it would have still directed its way to you. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. Faith is one of the biggest things that we try to encourage the cool kids here to really activate, because we all have it, right? And so share a little bit more about some of the faith that you guys have going on over there.
Well, we just came off of a 3-day retreat in Holland, Michigan on the topic of faith. It was myself and 11 other women. And I called it a faith mastermind. And we talked about, how do we cultivate faith that moves mountains? How do we cultivate that? Because you're right when you say we've all been given faith, a measure of faith, but there's so much in God's word about what gets in the way of faith, what hinders faith, what complicates things. For example, there was a version of a scripture that said, if you have faith and do not doubt, therefore not being divided. And so God was talking about how you can have faith, but you can also have doubt, which divides really your loyalty. Because are you going to be loyal to your faith and what you believe God says? Or are you going to be loyal to your fear and your doubt and what maybe you see with your natural eye? And what he was saying is, pick your team, pick a team, and it's kind of like what you're doing here with this Cool Kids Club. Pick what club you're going to be in. Are you going to be in the club that believes what I say? This is God talking, not me. Or are you going to be in the club that believes what you see with your natural eye, what's whispered in your ear? Because there's always chatter to challenge our faith. I just call it low-level chatter in our ears. And it could be our own thoughts. It could be what the world is saying. It could be what somebody walked up to you and said, you're nuts for what you think you can do. Could be any kind of chatter, but we have a decision to make every single day. And I think that what women saw at the retreat was, wow, it's really not that hard to say no to fear, to say no to doubt, to recognize that fear and doubt are just faith in the negative. And this is something I told them, Johnny, that I think you'll like. I said, if you are a worrier, you're excellent at faith, okay? Because you have practiced believing something. For me, I'm like a recovering worrier. I've practiced my faith my whole life. I just put it in the negative. I put it in the bad report. I put it in the evil forebodings. If I can take that same focus and put it in the promises, it is game over. Game over. The mountains being tossed into the sea.
Amazing, right? Yeah, you can say to this mountain, be thou. Absolutely, right? And you know what's interesting? I did a study on that. If you look at the highest mountain, I think it was Mount Everest, it actually fits in the deepest ocean.
Wow.
Because the ocean is so deep. So it doesn't matter what mountain is in front of you. God says, hey, be thou removed and be cast into the sea, because the sea is big enough to swallow it and engulf it. And you're absolutely right. You get to choose every single day. It's a choice. And faith and fear, I don't know if you know this, Andy Andrews says that it has the exact same meaning. It's both the expectation of an event that hasn't come to pass.
Wow.
And so 40% of everything that happens to us is a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're right.
Wow.
You're right.
40%.
Worry is just misguided faith. Realign it and watch your life completely transform. Kimberly, you had to have gone through some things to get you to where you are right now. Tell us about, how did all this happen? Tell us a little bit, because a lot of times people see us where we are now, never
Yes.
understanding what we had to go through. Oh, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes, I
Tell
heard
us about
someone
that.
say, yeah, I heard somebody say, everybody wants my big ministry and my platform, but nobody wants to pay the cost I paid to get it. And that's the part we need to talk about, right? The cost we pay to get to the places that look so wonderful. And they are wonderful places to have great influence over people and to effect great change in people's lives. That is a privilege, but it does not come without cost. And you got to be ready for that. Look at Joseph. He had this incredible destiny, and only God knew what it would take to prepare him, and the amount of injustice. It's like, okay, he has the dream, and the dream says, you're going to take a right turn and it's going to be amazing. And the very next thing that happens is a left turn that's horrible. Okay. That, that was my life. That was exactly my story. 21 years old, I was like, okay, God, let's do this. I want to live for you. I was already a mother of three, married for 3 years at 21. So I started my adult life very early. I was a teen mom and got married right out of high school. And but I knew that I needed God to have my back. I was very unsure about safety and security in this life for myself and my family. And so I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be amazing, right? And then this man that I really respected, a man of the faith, said to me one day, "You're a leader. Do you know that you're a leader?" And I was like, "What? I'm a leader?" I was so stunned to hear him say that. And I always say the saddest thing about that is I was already a mother of three and still did not view myself as a leader. And I was literally leading the most valuable team on the earth, the next generation. And I was oblivious to the fact that I was a leader. And my response to his statement was internally was like, wow, I really want that to be true. I didn't even believe it. I just hoped in it. And right, like, and eventually hope became belief and belief became knowing, which I call those the 3 stages of faith. Starts with hope, turns into belief, and then it's a knowing. You don't have to believe because you know. But my belief in my own leadership had to start with hope. Like, gosh, I hope that's true. I know what a mess I am. I know what got me in this boat, and it was me, you know? So, anyway, so I'm going along thinking I'm going to be a leader. I told God, I trust you to plan our family, give me as many children as you want. I'm operating in big faith, right? That did take some big faith. I'm not going to lie. I mean,
11.
I was 21 and I was obviously quite fertile. So saying to God, you know what, give me as many kids as you want. I actually sat there one day and I thought I could have like 20 children. Like I really could. I've got like 25 more childbearing years and I already have 3 kids, you know? So it was a leap of faith. But I dove in, Johnny, with this kind of faith. I was like, I'm giving you everything, even my womb, you know? And my husband was on board. So I mean, almost immediately I was pregnant with number 4. And on and on. I had after those 3, I had 8 more. I had 11 children. And by faith and believed God that whole time that God would provide for us. And we had many miracles during that time. But like Joseph, I did not go from the dream to the palace. I went from the dream to the pit, to the prison, to the palace. And there were dark, dark days, and my faith was tested, and many, many ugly things that were inside of me were revealed. And I always say, if you find yourself in the pit, don't worry, God will get you out, but not until he gets the pit out of you.
Ooh, woo.
Ugh, yeah, it's kind of a grimace face, like amen, but you, you know, it's rough. I mean, you go into these hardships because there's a scripture that says, and God brought them out of Egypt and into the wilderness to show them what was in their hearts, to reveal what was in their hearts. And I always say, do you think God didn't know what was in their hearts? Was he sleeping that day? You think he was the one who was uninformed? No, they were the ones that were uninformed. They needed to come face to face with what was in their own heart, as do we as God's kids, because the number one obstacle to our faith life, to our destiny, is what's in our own heart. It's not our circumstances. It's not the annoying people that we have to live with. It's not the job we don't like. It's not the extra 30 pounds we can't get rid of. It is what's on the inside of us 90% of the time. It's an obstacle internally. You know that as a coach. It's a limiting belief. It's a trapped emotion. It's something like that. Or it's baggage. It's old anger. It's old fear. It's an old paradigm. It's an old view of ourselves that doesn't fit the newness that we're walking into. And if we don't deal with those things, God's not going to quit on us. He'll just keep bringing us back to it. He's not going to say, listen, I tried with you. You're just too hard of a case for me. I got to move on. There's like 8 billion of you right now, and you're really time consuming. Honestly, if God ever said that, I would have been the first one he said it to. He never says that, but he does say, we're going to keep at this until we get it. And some people say, we're just going to go around that mountain until we pass the test. Then we can chuck that thing into the sea. And so I say all that to say that was probably the first 10 to 12 years of my young adult life walking with God while building my family, was circling mountains, circling mountains, circling mountains, going, nope, still haven't figured that out. Dealing with my own anger, dealing with a lot of self-pity, dealing with a big victim mindset. And listen, if you believe that you're just always going to get the short end of the stick, if you believe that nobody's looking out for you, so you got to look out for number one, if you believe that no matter how hard you try, it's just going to go down the tubes, it will. Okay? And if you believe that, you are living in the opposite mindset of faith thinking. Faith believes what God's word says against all odds, against all evidence, against all emotions, against all thoughts. Faith has to supersede what we think, feel, hear, and see in the natural realm. So I was having this chat with one of my kids the other day about it. She was talking about these feelings that kept reemerging. And I said, well, honey, here's the great news about feelings. They feel overwhelmingly compelling. They make you feel like you got no choice, right? I said, but they're just a result of your thoughts. So if you don't like your feelings, change your thoughts. I said, trace those feelings back to when your thoughts changed, because you had really some strong thoughts going on last time we talked. Now you've got these feelings, and I have a sneaking suspicion that you changed your thoughts. And she just sat there like, I did. It was like light bulb moment. And, that sounds oversimplified, but it really is that simple.
Yeah, again, it's a choice, right? What you feed your mind determines your appetite, right? Because
Yes,
those thoughts are those seeds. Those thoughts are going to determine your feelings, your emotions. Those emotions are your feelings. It's that cycle, right? It's going to determine your actions. Those actions are going to net you, or inactions are going to net you certain results, and those results are going to
yep,
reinforce the initial thought.
that's right. And then you're like, see, I told you, it's
Right,
such a trip.
that's that 40% of the self-fulfilling prophecy. So just change
Yep,
it. Just
yep,
change it. Just flip the
100%.
script is what we call it. Awesome. Now,
Well, it took, go ahead.
no, you shouldn't be here. The story you shared with me in Chicago, you should not be here. But
Yeah,
God.
yeah. Yeah. So, the short version of that story is during those years where I'm learning how to walk this faith walk, my husband was struggling greatly with chemical dependency, alcohol, drugs. There was a lot of dishonesty in our marriage, a lot of negativity, abuse, anger, fear, all the things. And it was not an environment that would foster faith. It was an environment that would foster fear. And I think about Joseph a lot, not that I put myself on his level, but I can relate, and I try hard to relate to his story. I imagine being a slave and having no freedom is frustrating. That's how I felt. I imagine being falsely accused and tossed into a prison felt absolutely terrifying and horrific. And there were times I felt very falsely accused and tossed into a prison and didn't know how I was going to get out. And it was during those years where I felt so enslaved to someone else's addiction, so held captive, and believed that the only way out was if he got sober. That was it. That was it. Like, the only way I'm ever going to be happy is if he gets sober. And what a sad, I don't know, sentence that I pronounced on myself. And it was very, very misguided. And later on in my process, when I was drowning in all of that, and my kids started to enter their teens, and I couldn't control anything anymore. And I had tried really, really hard to control everything, and I failed. And thank God I did, because that was never my call. That was never where the joy was gonna be, never where the victory was gonna be. But I failed to control everything, so I went and got some help. I actually hired a therapist to help me control my home life. She probably went home and laughed at me that night. But, what I learned was, that alcoholism, this is what she told me that set me so free. She said, "You know what? Alcoholism is only 5% liquid." I was like, "What?" She said, "The alcohol is 5%, the ism is the 95%." And she said, "You can dump the liquid down the drain, but you can't dump the ism down the drain." And that's when I realized, Johnny, he could get sober today and it only solves 5% of our problems. My mind was blown. I was like, I this is much worse than I thought. I just thought this one habit was the problem. But when she began to talk about the ism, I said, "Well, what's the ism?" She said the ism are the coping skills that go along with the alcohol for both parties. So he has a set of coping skills, you have a set of coping skills, and that's 95% of your problem. And that's when I knew I had an immense amount of work to do. Immense.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
So I got to work and I was like, what do I do? Like, and she just began to point me to resources. And really the simple way to say it is I had been developing my faith at that point for 10 or 12 years, but I didn't know anything about the world of personal development. I didn't know about the immense amount of resources for parenting, your finances, dealing with your temper, using like breathing techniques when you have anxiety. Like, there were all these things that were just a door that had been closed to me, or a door that was there but I didn't see it. And all of a sudden I saw the door and she flung it open to me and I ran in there, Johnny, and I was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, "Give me more, give me more. What else I'm just like digesting all this stuff. Like, I want to be sane. I want to be well. I want to be healthy. I didn't know what boundaries were. I was reading the Boundaries book by Townsend and Cloud, and I'm reading like the first few chapters or whatever, and I'm clearly identifying that my husband is a boundary crasher, right? Like, I'm like, the indictment was clear. I was indicting him while I'm reading the book, right? And then I get to this part that says, basically paraphrase, "By the way, you can't crash boundaries that don't exist." And I was like, "Oops." It's like, I don't actually have boundaries. So he's not crushing anything. I don't even know how to set a boundary, much less how to enforce one.
Free
So
range.
that, oh my gosh, it was the way I describe it is if my life was a house, it had no windows and doors. It was come and go through any opening freely. It was an unfinished house. And God was like, put on the doors, put on the windows, and start stewarding your life in a way that benefits you and the ones you love, because boundaries help everybody, right? So I start learning that. Can I just say that when you're boundaryless, like forever, the people that benefited from your boundarylessness are not happy when you make this discovery. It's I say all the time, if there had been a popularity contest in my house during these days, I would have lost every single time. Nobody loved the new and improved me for a long time. But this is my thought process, and I think somebody needs to hear this. I knew that my family had one chance. And that one chance was that one person, one, it only takes one to do it differently. And up until that point, nobody was doing it differently. Now I had an opportunity to do it differently, and this gave my family one shot. My mindset was, well, my marriage and this family has a 50-50 chance if I change me. If I don't change me, it has a 0% chance. That was my mindset. And I was gonna give my family that shot. And unfortunately, it was a 50-50 of winning and 50-50 of losing, and in a way we lost because that marriage ended, and it ended in violence, and it was horrific. It was terrible, but it also was a win because the people who wanted to win stuck together and we're winning today. And that's me and my 11 children. And our family legacy, the heritage that I changed by the grace of God only, continues to evolve into something so beautiful. We're healing together still. That happened in 2007. We're all still on our healing journey together. All my 11 children are adults now. 3 of them are married, 4 of them are parents. I have 9 grandchildren. You know, this is just catching on with everybody, and they're carrying the things into their adult lives that they saw that there were 2 roads, and they've made their choice, and they want the road of legacy too. They want the road of extraordinary too. And I'm telling you, a lot of times I felt like Moses, like, "Lord, why did you give me these people?" You know, not because the people were, I mean, the people are difficult anywhere you go, people are difficult, right? But I was like, "I am not qualified for this. I am the least qualified," you know, and I just imagine, like, Moses being like, "Me? I just shepherded a flock of sheep out there for like 40 years." And God was like, "Exactly. Now I'm going to give you a different set of sheep," you know? And basically, you know, that's what leadership can be like. But also just in leading and in leading people that you're trying to heal with, you will be stretched and challenged in every possible way. All your paradigms will be challenged. All of your methods will be challenged. All of your motives will be challenged. And that became kind of a massive purification process for me, and I'm still in it, and I love it. And it's been the hardest thing, the most gut-wrenching thing, but the most beautiful thing of my life is my family and what we've been through. And it was the platform for me to help women, because in all of this with my family and my own life and my own walk with God, I'm like, "Lord, I want to point people to you. I want to leave a legacy. I want to teach people how to live by faith no matter the pit or the prison. I want to teach people how to have an extraordinary family no matter how dysfunctional and damaged and destitute you were. I want to teach people how to leave a legacy financially." I didn't even talk yet about all the poverty that we lived in, the poverty I grew up in, and how part of my legacy is to eradicate that from my family. I mean, the opportunity we have today to change our financial legacy is unbelievable. There's nothing stopping us in that area either. I've been talking a long time, Johnny. It's your turn.
I'm soaking it all in. I know your focus is women. I get it. I understand. But do you know how many men need to hear this?
I
Can we
hear
come
that a
up with a
lot.
mew? A mew?
Well, I've been asked lots of
Maybe a meow?
variations of
I don't
that.
know.
And
We'll figure something out. You know, it's interesting you say that. Two things I want to share with you about what you just said. You know, we talked about having that faith, right? We all have that measure of faith to say to this mountain, be thou removed.
yeah,
Easier said than done, right? Sometimes we're going to have to pick up a shovel and start digging. Right? That's
yes,
that work. The other thing that a lot of my people that I coach, right? We call it the FuNLiFe coaching. But one of the things that I don't share with them is that we're going to have to we're going to have to set some boundaries. We're going to have to set some guidelines and rules, that we're going to have to address some issues, some previous thought patterns that have been established. And we're going to have to completely address some of those before we can get to the fun. So it's going to suck before we get to the fun, but it's all part of
yeah,
the process. And for most people, they want to talk about a breakthrough, right? We all want that breakthrough.
yeah,
But the fact of the matter is, chances are, and you kind of illustrated it perfectly, you're probably going to break down before you break through.
100%. 100%. The
And so
breakdown
that's,
is a part of the breakthrough. I had a really brilliant counselor in my life who said, the thing that stands between where you're at and where you want to be, and that could be a relational goal, like maybe your marriage is in trouble, and so you're in this marital difficulty or a health issue or a financial issue. The thing that's between you and the solution is one word. It's called tension. And he said, everybody avoids the tension, but the tension is the path through. That was so powerful for me. I thought, you're right. I could name 1,000 times in my life I ran away from the tension, because tension is uncomfortable. Tension can be painful. Tension means confronting. Tension means admitting. Tension means listening, right? All these things that are just no fun for us. But I thought, what a beautiful thing, because actually the word tension, when you think about it, like mechanically, machines need the right amount of tension to run, right? All these little parts. And the word tension isn't such a bad, scary word. So it kind of took some of the fear out of it for me. Like, I just need to be comfortable with tension. And it reminds me of this saying, get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's the whole idea of allowing the breakdown in order to have the breakthrough. What Satan meant to break you, God will use to make you, period. Period. The question is, will you let him? Will you let him use it to make you, or will you retreat? Will you shrink back? Will you feel sorry for yourself? Will you say, God abandoned me? Will you say, I believed, I had faith, and it led to nothing but garbage in my life? Will you believe that lie, that what happened is the opposite of what you prayed for, when it's actually exactly what you prayed for? It just isn't the path you wanted.
oh yeah, yeah. That goes back to the obstacle is the way, right? The
Yes.
question is the answer. I mean, there's a whole lot of that. Unfortunately, very few people, even the people that I coach, they don't like to hear that. And so when we coach, when we train, when we go out and we speak, we have to listen. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to make it fun, but we're going to have to get a lot of the junk out of the road so that we can enjoy the bike ride. Correct? And so
Yes.
that's what a
Yes.
lot of people misunderstand about what it is that they're trying to accomplish in this life, because we're just simply trying to help them get from here to here. And it's not as easy as you think, right? I often tell
No,
people
it
that the
isn't.
connection, the bridge between visualization and that realization is the implementation. There's some things that
Oh,
have to
that's
get
good.
done. There's
That
some
is
things that have
good.
to get done, and very few people are willing to do what it takes. But if
That
you
is so
do,
good,
right,
Johnny.
if you're willing to do that, go ahead.
If you're willing to do it, you can attain the promise. But I think too, like, that even begins with the visualization. I have this saying, if you can't see it, you won't be it. And if you can't see the you that you were made to be in all of your glory, the glory God put on you, because we were made in his image. So this isn't about us, it's about him. But if you can't see that completed you, that's whole, that's capable, that's healed, that's without shame, without fear, without dread, without baggage, that completed you that is confident in who he says you are, not in yourself, but in who he says you are. What God says about me is the truest thing about me. If you can't see yourself walking in that, even though you're not there yet, you won't get there. Think about it. If you got in the car and you turn the ignition on and you had no destination, you wouldn't drive. You just sit in the car. But you have to see the
Yeah.
destination. You have to know the destination. And our completed, whole, glorious selves are the destination that God intended for us. I mean, Jesus went to the cross to restore what was taken, and what was taken was the fact that we were made in his image. We weren't made to be broken down, defeated, fearful, completely annihilated shells of human beings. That's the enemy's will for us. That is not God's will for us. And Jesus came to restore his will for us, which was to reflect him in the earth. And if you can't see that possibility for yourself, I say this because I couldn't see it for myself for a long time. I would hear these things about how I have this amazing destiny. People would tell me in my 20s, when I was in my darkest days, trying to survive with my family, my growing family, trying to survive emotionally, financially, all the things. And they'd say, "Oh, I see you have an incredible future. I see you on platforms and stages." And I'd be like, "What?" I'd say to myself, "What would I say to a crowd of people? I don't even know what to say to myself." And then somebody said to me, "I see you writing books." And I'm like, "Writing books? What will I write? I can't even help me. I don't even know how to raise these kids." Like, it was so fly in the face of my reality. But here's what happened. Those words sparked a tiny little flame inside me. And I thought, well, that's a lot better than where I think I'm going. I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to hold on to that. And I began to hold on to it. And I did what it says about Mary, what she did with Jesus. I pondered these things in my heart. And I began to meditate on these things and chew on these things. And I started to see them, little glimmers, little ones, and I felt weird. I felt prideful. I felt like if people knew I was thinking about seeing myself on a stage right now, they would so judge me. What I did not know then was God was saying, if you can't birth this in what my friend says up in here, we have an imaginator and we have a revelator. Sometimes God calls us to imagine and sometimes he just reveals. Okay. So I was seeing this stuff in my imaginator and I thought if people knew what I was imagining right now, they would think I'm such a something. I don't know the word, but God was saying, honey, if you don't activate that thing, God was saying, if you don't see it, you'll never be it. And so that vision of myself in my mind grew over the years, a little bit every year, a little bit. And not too long after that, my first speaking engagement, Johnny, was, believe it or not, will you speak at a baby shower about motherhood? Wow. I was like, me? Really? And I had to say to myself, what would I say about motherhood when I feel like I'm failing at it? I mean, so I thought, well, you know what I can say about motherhood? I can just say what the Bible says about children, because that's no lie. And I believe it with all my heart. So I just gave this talk about why children are a blessing from the Lord, why people are the most treasured possession of heaven. And when God entrusts you with a child, he is entrusting you with treasure, and how only three things are going to last forever. And it's God, his word, and people. And so if God is giving you a family, he's giving you something eternal. Everything else you have is going to burn up, but the people that he entrusts you with, you can take with you. That's the only thing you can take with you besides God and his word. And I just shared all of that. And I was like, that was fun. I was like, talk about fun life. I'm like, I could do this, and it was like I tapped into something I was born to do. And I sat there like, well, when and how can I do that again? And so then I started to lead small women's Bible studies. And before I knew it, I was taking these parenting classes to help get my head on straight with my kids. And I'm on like week 2 of this parenting class. And I went up to the instructor and I said, how can I teach these? And as soon as that came out of my mouth, I was like, take it back, take it back. I was like, what did I just do? Oh my gosh, I can't
Who
teach
said that?
parenting classes. I was like, I'm the worst possible person to teach these classes. What did I just do? And the guy goes, oh, I would love to mentor you. It would be really great for us to co-teach. He's like, I have 2 kids and they're grown, but you have 11 kids and you're in the throes of parenting. You would be a great facilitator for this. And then I was like, oh crap. Like he said, yes, and so I couldn't believe it. 6 months into this thing, I'm up in front of classrooms full of parents, and I feel like such a hypocrite. I feel like such a poser. There wasn't even a name for it then, but now it's called imposter syndrome. I just felt like such a phony. And so when I got up there, I would make sure to say, listen, I'm here because I have 11 kids and I need this class more than all of you combined. And they'd all go, yeah, you do, you do. And, and I would share my failures and my successes. I'm like, I'm learning this with you. I just try to make really clear I'm a student of this. Well, about 6 months into that, every time I'm getting in the van to go teach this class, I'm like, Lord, why? What are you doing? Why? Why? Because I literally felt like he was shoving me into this. And one day I heard this quote, the best way to teach something, or the best way to learn something, is by teaching it to someone else. And that's when I realized he put me there to fast track my learning because I needed it so badly. He didn't think me an expert. He knew I needed to be the most dedicated student. So he made me the teacher. And it changed how I saw people in the front of the room. I thought, if people are like me, they're there sometimes, not always, but sometimes because they need what they're saying more than anybody else in the room. And Johnny, that's really been the bulk of my content. I've taught out of my life so thoroughly and with so much rawness that most of the time I'm talking to myself when I'm in front of a room. And I'm reminding myself of something I desperately need to be reminded of, or I'm revealing something I just learned in the last month, and I'm getting it deeper into me by teaching it to you. And it's just been a huge journey. But just to finally wrap up your question 25 minutes later, so it was in 2011 that God was like, I want you to go get a coaching certification. I was like, I don't even know what that is. Huh? And so I just did it. I launched a business, had zero experience with coaching, marketing, none of it. I just had taught these little classes, taught Bible studies, spoke at little things. And all of a sudden now I'm running a business, which I loved because I wanted to own a business my whole life. And then that was in 2011. Then in 2013, I got this vision. And when I say vision, it wasn't like a heavenly vision. I just saw in my mind the possibility of a women's network for women of faith like me who loved being business owners like me and loved their families like me, and that we could all get together and make each other better, and that we could lock arms and support one another and be for each other what a couple key women had been for me. There were a couple key women in my life that loved me without competition. They built me up. They talked about me in rooms I wasn't in, and it wasn't gossip. It was nothing but words of life. They were women that really modeled what the kingdom was supposed to look like for women, not what the world looks like for women. And I thought they taught me that. and I can go teach that to other women and replicate that, and we can really, really exponentially multiply each other's faith lives, family lives, and business lives. And that's how FU, the Fellowship of Extraordinary Women, was born.
Wow. Wow. I mean, seriously, you touched on so much. I really am. I go back and watch these things several times, take notes, and do all this stuff because, matter of fact, I was writing some stuff down right there. You just said, but if I can go back just a little bit, right? One of my favorite quotes is Albert Einstein. He said that imagination is everything. It's the preview of life's coming attractions.
Oh, that's so good. Oh.
If you can start to see that, can you imagine? It's the preview of life's coming attraction. God wouldn't have given you that vision if he wasn't going to be able to provide the provision, right?
Amen.
And so all of a sudden now you go out there with that vision in mind, because I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm hearing it from a different perspective from when you were in Chicago. But what if you wouldn't have bet on you?
Oh.
What if you wouldn't have made that decision to be different, to do something different? How many people would have been cheated because they wouldn't have had a voice, right? Because what I love about what you said about your story a while ago is that really your story is really my story and the viewer's story with just a few little tweaks and twists. And so you're sharing with them the problem you had, the action you took, and look at the outcome. No, it wasn't easy, right? If it was easy, everybody do it, but it was worth it. And now, can you imagine living a life, any other life?
No, I really can't. And I had this fabulous talk yesterday with my spiritual father, and he's a mentor to me. And he said, you have to know your why, because your why reveals intent of the heart. And he said, why do you do what you do? And and I was thinking about my answer as he spoke. And he was just kind of teaching me on this topic. He wasn't like grilling me per se, but I was thinking about, I was like, I got to really apply this to my life. Like, what does this mean for me? And he said, if you ask someone why they do what they do, and their answer is anything less than, this is the call on my life, this is how I serve, this is how I build the kingdom, okay? He said, if they're saying anything less than that, then they have some other motive. And I just sat there like, oh, thank God, because the first thing that came to my mind was, because this is the call on my life. That was the first thing that came to my mind. And then I said to him, I said, you know what? If that wasn't my why, if my why wasn't, this is the call on my life, I would have quit and given up so many times. Because here's what I need people to know about me, Johnny. I need them to know I'm the biggest quitter they'll ever meet. I quit everything. I've quit everything. The only two things that I've never quit are on my family and on my call. And it's because I have not quit on God. So I guess three things, but I have quit every diet, every exercise routine. I had like 7 other businesses before FU over the years, quit them all. I can't even tell you how many things I quit because I viewed myself as a failure. And when you view yourself as a failure and you get to a point where something scares you bad enough and you let the fear work, you quit. That's exactly what happened to me. And in fact, in business, the main thing that caused me to quit, I had a great business coach years ago who taught me this. It's the start that stops most people in life. It was actually the start of all those businesses that stopped me. But this wasn't a business idea. This wasn't, you can make some extra cash. This is your destiny. You're going to start out as a coach and you're going to help people one-on-one. I had no idea this was going to evolve into this movement and that FU would be established and that now in 2024, we're expanding chapters in other parts of the country, other parts of the world. We have chapters in South Africa. We have a chapter we just launched in Atlanta. We have another one coming in the Twin Cities. Like, I just sat there in my office coaching people one-on-one, thinking it was the greatest thing since sliced white bread. You know, I was like, this is amazing, Lord. Thank you for letting me live out my destiny. And here I am. I can't even believe what I'm doing today. But at some point in my journey, I had to see it. I had to imagine the preview of life's coming attractions. Oh, that's so good. That is my new favorite. Thank you so much, Johnny, for that. Love it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Hey, listen, wow, we've gone way over what our normal time is. And I appreciate you sharing with you because, again, there's people here in East Texas and there's people that watch me. There's a lady in Belgium that watches me and sends me stuff all the time. I'm like, Belgium? Okay. You just never know your influence and your
That's
reach,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
And so how can people connect with you? I've kind of put the little messages in the comment section on the screen.
Yes.
But how can they connect with you guys? How can they be part of what you're doing? Because I believe every woman has a story to tell, right? I love the stories of my mom, my sisters. How can they connect with you to be able to just to keep developing their story so that they can have the impact in their sphere of influence to be able to be the woman that God created them to be?
Yes. Well, I can tell you, I've encountered many women terrified to tell their story. And they credit being a part of a community where everyone's telling their story. So it really is important that we lock arms with women who are finding the courage to tell their story because we can borrow that courage. It rubs off. So it is important to be with a network like Few and women like the Few women who are going to say, people need to hear your story, you know? So connect with us on thefewwomen.com, like you've got there on the screen. And then you can find us on socials. We're on Instagram as @thefewwomen. We're on Facebook, the Fellowship of Extraordinary Women. Also, you can connect with me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn as Official Kimberly Joy. And I would just love to hear part of your story. What draws you to Few? Why do you feel like you need a community? We have an online community. And like I said, we're expanding and we're bringing Few to a city near you in no time. It's a work in progress and it's a glorious work. I can't even believe it. It's kind of like, Johnny, a woman that works with me who is an incredible, she's my chief growth officer. She said, it takes a woman with 11 kids to run a business like this. And she'll say to me all the time, just remember, I only have one. Okay. So she's like, apparently you just like a lot of extra stuff in your life. I'm like, only extra people, not a lot of extra stuff, but a lot of extra people. I love that.
That is so awesome, Miss Kimberly. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking time out of your day to share with all the cool kids. Yeah, I knew you were a cool kid from the moment we met, right? The story the story, I mean, that story you tell me still impacts me. But that's that story of resilience, the story of resolve, the story of knowing that you have a bigger purpose, because that's my life verse, right? Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, right? The Lord emphatically declares plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future.
Amen. Amen. And that promise is for everyone. God is no respecter of person. If I could just leave your audience with one closing thought about faith. Is your faith in what God says, or is your faith in your past experiences and your feelings? If you believe based on your past experiences and your feelings that God isn't going to do for you in the future, then your faith is not in His word, because His word is true for you regardless of any past experience you had, regardless of any negative feelings you have, regardless of what people said about you, did to you, what they didn't do for you. His promises are based on His word, His ironclad word alone, not on your ability to fail, but His ability to succeed.
Boom, done. Mic drop. Let's go. Oh, Miss Kimberly, thank you so much. We're definitely going to have to do this again. I don't know when, I don't know how, but we're going to definitely do this
I'd
again.
love
And
to.
if
Thank you,
and
Johnny One.
for anytime you guys have something together, just let me know. I'll share it on my social media posts so the women in this area can connect, find it, because
Thank you.
there's things all over the world. But I really love your heart. I love your spirit. I love who you are. I love what you guys do, and I can't wait to be able to connect the people in this area with your community.
Thank you. I'd love that, Johnny One. And right back at you. Keep doing what you're doing. You bring so much light and life. And we are in a world full of death and darkness. So keep bringing your light and life. You have no idea the ripple effect that you are having.
Thank you. All right, Miss Kimberly, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Love you,
Okay.
girl. We'll see you
God
later.
bless. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Guys, how awesome was that? Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch this thing. I don't know how many times. I'm going to make sure my daughter sees this. I'll make sure my wife sees this. She's out working. But hey, listen, guys, if you guys want to connect with us here in the FuNLiFe community, right, just simply go to johnnywan.com. You guys see it right there on the screen. Or you can go to the FuNLifeCoaching.com. We're still doing a lot of things to help you guys be more, do more, and have more, and be able to activate that childlike faith that is inside of you to live out your childhood dreams. Hey, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Love you. Hey, we'll see you on Motivational Monday. Adios.